it so much resonates something Richie and I often talk about, which is the idea that flourishing is contagious. And when you connect with these parts of your own being and you start to nurture them, it just naturally not only is beneficial to your own life, it just naturally is going to ripple out and benefit others. I thought we could start the discussion maybe with an acknowledgement that we're living in a world that can so often feel broken. We have so many pulls on our attention. There's so much distraction. Mental health issues are just through the roof. And it's just so easy to get focused on everything that just seems to be falling apart. We can feel broken. The world seems so dysfunctional. And on the one hand, that's not untrue. On the other hand, there's this blind spot to what's not broken. That there is, in your words, a wholeness. There is a beauty and a richness that we can lose touch with. So I thought we could, rather than going straight to all the problems, which I'm sure we'll reference, maybe just a little bit of reflections. And I'd love to hear both of you what you might think about this. How can we get back in touch with the parts that weren't broken? What are the parts that are not and were never and never will be broken? And how do we get in touch with those?
That's an incredible question and invitation. I mean, it really is. Richard, do you want to go first, or would
Jon, you go first.
um, I don't think anybody has not had the experience of seeing a newborn baby. And when you have an experience of seeing a newborn baby, whether it's your own baby or whether it's somebody else's, there's an immediate sense of miraculousness, of wonder, of simply an amazing being. There's no sense that this person is problematic. This person yet in formation is problematic. And as people get older, somehow then we begin to impute on them, sort of like a approach avoidance kind of issues in a biological sense. Is this friend or is this foe? And if it's a friend, yes, of course, we approach. But if it's a foe, then we have a problem, and we go into fear states and we go into othering. And to be able to be aware of this as a skill, as you folks so beautifully emphasize, that mindfulness is in some sense a lens that you can skillfully put up in front of your experience and recognize your own projections of other, when the ultimate connectivity is belonging, is a seamless relationality of humanity itself. Nobody has trouble with babies. Nobody has a trouble with kittens, but even cats people have trouble with, or dogs or whatever. But when they're babies, we can agree. So there's a certain way in which I think what this is pointing to is what, sometimes called our original nature, or our original beauty, or our original heart. And a lot of times it's not just other people that are a problem. We are the problem. We don't like ourselves. We feel uncomfortable. We, spend hours looking in the mirror, and we have problems with our face or our hair or our looks or our age. There's always something that you can focus on that's just off. And what's really off is that focus and that sense of there not being willing to actually perceive yourself in your wholeness, in your true being. And so what meditative awareness is, or the act, so to speak, of taking one's seat metaphorically and literally, is basically an experiment or an exploration in investigating your essential nature. It's like meditation is like a laboratory of inquiry into who the hell am I in the first place? And if I'm not my thoughts and feelings and emotions and ideas and criticisms about myself, then who am I? And I think that there's no question that if you investigate in this way, there's only one answer to that. And that is, you are pure awareness. That's the mystery.
The issue of, I love the way you describe the kind of innate humanity and the basic nature of our mind and our heart that is there from the start. And Court and I talk about this in Born to Flourish. But there's now a growing body of scientific evidence that actually really robustly confirms this, that when we come into the world, we actually do have these qualities where we come into the world with a propensity for cooperation and kindness. This is actually who we are. It's not something that we're just creating de novo. And we can lose touch with it. And the practices that we're all in love with are practices that help us reconnect with it, but we're really reconnecting with our basic nature. And that's,
this morning, Serena couldn't go to the assembly at school before the vacation for our grandson, Joaquin. And so she asked us if we would go. So Lyle and I went. And the principal of the school did an extraordinary thing for this whole gathering of the entire elementary school from kindergarten up through 5th grade. She led an extended guided meditation on light, and the light being within everybody because of Hanukkah and Christmas and all the other, holidays around this, time of the shortest day and the longest night of the year. And it was like, it was an extended guided meditation with like maybe 500 people in the gymnasium. And it was like, I'd never seen anything like that in the middle of the public elementary school. It was gorgeous. And I think that itself told me this morning that the world is changing, actually. And I never would have seen that at PS 173 when I was in elementary school.
Each of you, in similar ways and in different ways, has, as you put it, Jon, has had a love affair with these practices and these traditions and this inner and outer exploration. If we were just to try to, somebody just off the street who's like, has a moment with you and like, what's one thing that you would really just want to share to encapsulate just something that those listening and that we can all take into our lives is just something, a koan, a tip, anything, like what's maybe something that really distills just an essential point that we can bring with us going into our complex lives? Both Richie and Jon, I'd love to hear each of you, just a thought, anything that comes to mind that you would like to
you
share.
want to stab at it first?
Sure, I'm happy to. I would say that both the science as well as the experience one has in the contemplative world is teaching us that there is a part of us which is not broken and which is never broken. And that part is always with us. And it is, as we talked about earlier, this is really our true nature. And what our task is really to remember that and to come back to that. And it's our companion. It really is our core. And so I think it could be really comforting to taste this. And once you've tasted it, and you begin to develop a conviction that this is really who you are. And then all the other stuff, the polycrisis around us, it's horrible and we need to act. And yet there's still a kind of fundamental okayedness. And that could be really liberating.
So beautiful. Jon?
Very
What would you
beautiful.
share?
And I second everything that you say there. I think it's really important to remember that, as we like to say in MBSR, there's more right with you than wrong with you, no matter what you think is wrong with you or people have told you is wrong with you. And especially in terms of trauma, what you said, Richie, reminds me that, even with a very severe trauma, but which is extremely difficult to come back from and to heal from, I always emphasize that, no matter how big the scar, there's always something bigger that is holding the scar that's never been scarred. And so in some sense, our original nature, or if you want to call it, pure awareness, is unscarable. And it has the potential to actually heal deep wounds that we carry by tending them with tenderness and care, and in a way that recognizes that the problem with the story of me isn't so much that it's a story, but that it's way too small a story. It's just way too small. That the actuality of what it means to be a human being, or any kind of being on planet Earth at this moment, is so infinitely miraculous. And as we said before we came on the air, like, a kind of the product of 13.8 billion years of analog evolution in the universe since the Big Bang, or since 300 million years after the Big Bang. The Big Bang just gave us hydrogen and helium. And then out of that, like, the whole periodic table evolved out of star formation long before there were us. And here we are on this tiny little blue rock, which has liquid water, which is like a miracle beyond miracles in this universe, and going around the sun at just the right Goldilocks distance. I mean, we have all the right, perfect conditions for understanding what it means to be human in our analog beauty. The conditions have never been more perfect. And so I'm very hopeful, even though the world looks really extremely challenging and dark. I am very hopeful that when we've tried everything else, humanity is capable of actually waking up and using its digital smarts along with its infinite analog smarts to make our world possible for not just humans, but for life itself on planet Earth, and love the adventure moment by moment in getting there.